Ancient Egypt is one of the most mysterious civilizations in human history. But some of its strangest secrets are rarely talked about. This civilization lasted for more than 3,000 years. During that time, Egyptians developed beliefs that seem unbelievable today. Ancient Egyptians believed the heart controlled intelligence and emotion. The brain was considered almost useless. During mummification, embalmers carefully preserved many organs. But the brain was usually removed and discarded. Pharaohs believed they would live again in another world. Their tombs were filled with objects for the afterlife. Some tombs contained hundreds of everyday items. Egyptians believed the dead would still need them later. But some burial traditions were darker than expected. In early periods, servants were sometimes buried with their ruler. Ancient Egypt was also filled with strange gods. Many had the bodies of humans and the heads of animals. One god looked like a falcon watching over the sky. Another appeared as a jackal guarding the land of the dead. Religion shaped nearly every part of Egyptian life. Rituals were believed to protect both the living and the dead. Even daily hygiene in Egypt was unusual. Many people shaved their entire bodies to avoid parasites. Children often had completely shaved heads. Only a single lock of hair was left on one side. Egyptian doctors practiced unusual medicine. Some treatments used honey, herbs, and strange ingredients. Surprisingly, some treatments were effective. Honey was used to prevent infections in wounds. Egyptians also loved cosmetics and eye makeup. Both men and women used dark paint around their eyes. They believed this makeup protected their eyes from sunlight. Some even believed it had magical power. But the strangest beliefs involved what happened after death. Egyptians believed the soul had several parts. One part of the soul still needed food and offerings. Without them, the spirit might struggle. That is why tombs were filled with bread, beer, and supplies. Everything for the afterlife was prepared in advance. But the strangest facts about ancient Egypt go far beyond pyramids and mummies. Some of them are almost impossible to believe. Pharaohs were not just kings in ancient Egypt. People believed they were living gods walking among humans. From birth, a pharaoh was treated as someone divine. Their authority was believed to come directly from the gods. Because of this belief, every action of a pharaoh had symbolic meaning. Even the way they dressed carried powerful messages. One of the strangest symbols of power was the royal beard. But many pharaohs did not actually grow one. Instead, they wore an artificial beard tied to the chin. This symbol represented divine authority. Even female pharaohs sometimes wore this fake beard. It helped reinforce their image as rulers. Pharaohs also wore special crowns representing different regions of Egypt. Each crown symbolized control over the land. The double crown became one of the most famous symbols. It represented the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. But royal life was not only about power and ceremony. Pharaohs also lived under strict traditions. Many pharaohs married within their own family. Some even married their sisters. These marriages were believed to keep royal blood pure. The tradition continued for many generations. Pharaohs also had enormous palaces and temples. These buildings were meant to show their divine status. Thousands of workers built monuments in their honor. Many projects lasted for decades. Pharaohs also surrounded themselves with advisors and priests. These figures helped maintain the kingdom. But royal life could also be surprisingly dangerous. Pharaohs constantly feared assassination and betrayal. Because of this fear, royal guards protected them day and night. Security around the ruler was extremely strict. Some pharaohs even worried about insects. Mosquitoes near the Nile could be unbearable. According to some stories, servants were sometimes used as living mosquito traps. They were covered in honey to attract insects away from the ruler. Pharaohs also had a close relationship with animals. Many animals were considered sacred companions. Cats were especially respected in Egyptian culture. Some pharaohs kept them inside royal palaces. When sacred animals died, they were sometimes mummified. Even animals could receive elaborate burials. Pharaohs believed these animals served spiritual purposes. Some were considered messengers of the gods. Royal meals were also incredibly elaborate. Banquets included bread, meat, fruit, and beer. Large feasts were held during festivals. These celebrations honored both the pharaoh and the gods. Pharaohs also participated in important ceremonies. Some rituals symbolized the renewal of their power. One famous ritual required the pharaoh to run in a ceremonial race. It demonstrated their strength and leadership. Even in death, Pharaohs were treated differently from ordinary people. Their burial preparations could take months. Massive tombs were constructed to protect their bodies. These structures were designed to last forever. Inside these tombs were countless treasures and objects. Everything was meant to help the ruler in the afterlife. But the strange lives of pharaohs were only the beginning. Some of the most bizarre Egyptian traditions are still ahead. One of the most famous Egyptian traditions was mummification. It was believed to protect the body for the afterlife. Egyptians believed the soul needed its body after death. Preserving the corpse was therefore extremely important. The mummification process was long and complicated. Sometimes it lasted for about 70 days. The first step involved removing the brain. This was done through the nose using a metal hook. The brain was considered unimportant. It was usually discarded during the process. Next, embalmers removed several internal organs. These organs were placed in special containers. These containers were known as canopic jars. Each jar protected a specific organ. Interestingly, the heart was usually left inside the body. Egyptians believed it was the center of intelligence. The body was then dried using a natural salt called natron. This helped remove moisture from the corpse. For many days the body slowly dried out. Eventually it became preserved for centuries. After drying, embalmers wrapped the body with long strips of linen. Hundreds of layers were sometimes used. During the wrapping process, small charms were placed between the layers. These were meant to protect the dead. One of the most famous charms was the scarab. It symbolized rebirth and protection. After wrapping, the mummy was placed inside a decorated coffin. Sometimes multiple coffins were used. The final coffin was often placed inside a stone sarcophagus. This protected the body inside the tomb. But mummification was not limited to humans. Egyptians also mummified animals. Cats were among the most commonly mummified animals. They were sacred to the goddess Bastet. Other animals were preserved as well. Crocodiles, birds and even bulls were mummified. Millions of animal mummies have been discovered by archaeologists. Many were offerings to the gods. Some mummies were extremely detailed and expensive. These were reserved for royalty and wealthy people. But cheaper mummification methods also existed. Poorer Egyptians used simpler techniques. Some mummies were even fake. Archaeologists have found empty wrappings with no body inside. These fake mummies were sometimes created for religious offerings. They symbolized devotion rather than real bodies. Even today, many mummies remain incredibly well preserved. Some still have visible hair and skin. The preservation techniques of ancient Egypt were truly remarkable. Some mummies have survived for thousands of years. But mummification was only one part of Egyptian burial beliefs. The journey of the soul was even stranger. According to their beliefs, the soul would face judgment in the afterlife. This judgment determined its fate forever. And the most important part of that judgment involved the human heart. It would be weighed against a feather. If the heart was heavier than the feather, the soul failed the test. Something terrifying waited for those souls. And that creature was one of the strangest monsters in Egyptian mythology. Its story begins next. Ancient Egyptians believed death was only the beginning. They thought the soul would begin a dangerous journey. The duat was filled with strange creatures and dangerous obstacles. Only the prepared soul could survive it. This journey led to a mysterious realm known as the duat. It was the Egyptian version of the underworld. To help navigate this world, Egyptians created special burial texts. These instructions guided the soul. One of the most famous texts was the Book of the Dead. It contained spells and guidance for the journey. These spells helped the soul avoid monsters. They also helped pass the gates of the underworld. The underworld was said to contain many gates. Each one was guarded by supernatural beings. If the soul answered correctly, it could pass safely. If not, the journey could end in disaster. Eventually the soul reached the most important moment. This was the judgment of the heart. Egyptians believed the heart contained all memories and actions. It revealed whether a person lived a good life. The heart was placed on a magical scale. On the other side was a feather of truth. The feather belonged to the goddess Ma'at. She represented truth and cosmic balance. But if the heart was heavier than the feather, the result was terrifying. The soul would face destruction. If the heart balanced perfectly with the feather, the soul passed the test. This meant the person lived honestly. Waiting beside the scale was a terrifying creature. Its name was Ammit. Ammit was a terrifying hybrid monster. It had the head of a crocodile and the body of a lion. Part of its body also resembled a hippopotamus. Egyptians combined their most feared animals into one creature. If the heart failed the test, Ammit devoured it. This meant the soul would never exist again. This punishment was called the second death. Egyptians feared it more than anything else. But souls who passed the test received a reward. They entered a peaceful paradise. This paradise was known as the Field of Reeds. It looked similar to the Nile Valley. The soul could live there forever. Life continued in a perfect version of the world. Egyptians believed they would farm and live happily. The afterlife was seen as a continuation of life. That is why tombs were filled with tools and supplies. Everything needed in the next life was prepared. Small worker statues were also placed inside tombs. Egyptians believed these figures would serve the dead. These statues were called ushabti. They were meant to perform work in the afterlife. Because of these beliefs, Egyptians prepared carefully for death. The afterlife was just as important as life. Their burial traditions were incredibly complex. Many took years of preparation. But even stranger traditions existed in everyday Egyptian life. Some daily habits might surprise you. And some of those everyday habits were far more bizarre than you might expect. Their daily life could be surprisingly strange. Life in ancient Egypt could be surprisingly unusual. Many everyday habits were very different from today. Most Egyptians lived close to the Nile River. The river controlled nearly every part of their daily life. But daily life also involved some strange habits. Hygiene was taken very seriously in Egyptian culture. The Nile flooded every year and left fertile soil behind. This made farming possible in the desert environment. Many Egyptians shaved their heads completely. This helped prevent lice and parasites. Priests were especially strict about cleanliness. They sometimes shaved their entire bodies. Because of the heat, Egyptians wore very light clothing. Linen made from flax was the most common material. Footwear was also very simple. Many people walked barefoot most of the time. But one surprising part of Egyptian life involved cosmetics. Both men and women used eye makeup. This dark eye paint helped reduce sunlight glare. It also protected eyes from infections. Life in ancient Egypt could be surprisingly unusual. Many everyday habits were very different from today. Egyptians also used perfumes and oils. These helped protect skin from the hot climate. Another strange item in Egyptian homes was the pillow. Instead of soft cushions, they used stone headrests. These stone supports kept the head elevated during sleep. Egyptians believed this protected the neck and hair. Food in ancient Egypt was fairly simple. Bread was the most important part of the diet. Beer was also extremely common. In fact, many Egyptians drank beer every day. This beer was different from modern versions. It was thick and often contained pieces of grain. Children sometimes drank diluted beer as well. Clean drinking water was not always available. Egyptians also loved board games. One of the most popular was called Senet. Many believed this game symbolized the journey of the soul. Winning could represent reaching the afterlife. Animals also played an important role in daily life. Cats were especially respected in Egyptian homes. Cats helped protect food from rats and snakes. Because of this, they became sacred animals. Hurting a cat could bring serious punishment. Egyptians believed harming one was extremely disrespectful. Many households also kept other animals. Dogs, birds, and even monkeys were sometimes pets. Music and dancing were common during celebrations. Festivals filled Egyptian cities with activity. Large religious festivals honored the gods and the pharaoh. These events brought entire communities together. Despite the harsh desert climate, Egyptian cities were vibrant places. Markets were busy with traders and buyers. Merchants sold food, pottery, and cloth. Trade helped connect Egypt with distant lands. Boats along the Nile carried goods between cities. The river functioned like a massive highway. But even stranger customs existed in Egyptian culture. Some of their beliefs about animals were truly unusual. In fact, many animals were worshipped as living symbols of gods. And their stories are some of the strangest of all. Animals held powerful symbolic meanings in ancient Egypt. Many were seen as physical representations of gods. Instead of worshipping the animal itself, Egyptians believed divine power could live within it. These animals were treated with deep respect. One of the most famous sacred animals was the ibis bird. It was connected to the god Thoth. Thoth was the god of wisdom and knowledge. The ibis symbolized intelligence and careful observation. Another powerful sacred animal was the crocodile. This dangerous reptile represented the god Sobek. Sobek was associated with strength and the Nile's power. Some temples even kept living crocodiles inside sacred pools. These crocodiles were sometimes decorated with jewelry. They were treated almost like royalty. Another important sacred creature was the Apis bull. This animal symbolized power and fertility. Only one Apis bull existed at a time. Priests searched carefully for a bull with specific markings. Once discovered, the bull was brought to a temple. It lived under constant care and protection. Visitors sometimes traveled long distances to see the sacred bull. It was believed to bring blessings. When the sacred bull died, it received a grand burial. The ceremony could last for days. Hawks were also deeply respected animals. They symbolized the sky god Horus. Because of this belief, hawks often appeared in royal symbols. Pharaohs associated themselves with Horus. Some temples even raised birds inside their walls. These animals were part of religious rituals. Dogs and jackals were also important symbols. They were connected to the god Anubis. Anubis was believed to protect tombs and guide the dead. The jackal became a powerful symbol of this role. Some sacred animals even lived inside temples. Priests cared for them every day. These animals were believed to carry divine energy. Their behavior could be interpreted as messages from the gods. People sometimes brought offerings for these animals. Gifts were left at temples in hope of good fortune. Ancient Egypt was not only a land of myths and temples. It was also a civilization full of clever inventions. Many Egyptian technologies were surprisingly advanced for their time. Some ideas still influence modern inventions today. One important invention was papyrus paper. It allowed Egyptians to record information more easily. Papyrus was made from a plant growing along the Nile. The plant fibers were pressed into thin sheets. Once dried, the sheets became a smooth writing surface. Scribes used them to record history and laws. Scribes were highly respected in Egyptian society. Their ability to read and write was rare. Egyptians also created early forms of ink. The ink was made from soot mixed with natural liquids. Using reed pens, scribes carefully painted hieroglyphs onto papyrus. Each symbol carried specific meaning. Egyptians were also skilled engineers. They built massive structures using clever construction techniques. Levers helped workers move extremely heavy stones. This simple tool multiplied human strength. Ramps were another important construction tool. They helped transport blocks to higher levels. With ramps and teamwork, massive stones could be moved across great distances. Entire monuments slowly took shape. Egyptians also invented early door locks. These wooden locks worked using a pin mechanism. A special key lifted wooden pins inside the lock. Once the pins moved, the door could open. These locks were surprisingly similar to modern designs. The basic concept is still used today. Egyptians also developed early timekeeping tools. One of them was the sundial. By observing the shadow of the sun, people could estimate the time of day. This helped organize daily activities. Another timekeeping device was the water clock. It measured time using dripping water. As water flowed from the container, the water level dropped. Markings inside the vessel showed passing time. Egyptians were also skilled shipbuilders. Boats were essential for travel along the Nile. These boats carried people, food and construction materials. The Nile acted like a massive highway. Egyptians also understood basic geometry. This knowledge helped measure land after Nile floods. Surveyors used ropes with evenly spaced knots. These ropes helped calculate distances and angles. This knowledge of measurement supported large construction projects. Accurate planning was essential. Egyptians even developed early forms of medicine and surgery. Doctors used tools for treating injuries. Some medical texts described treating broken bones. Splints were used to stabilize injuries. Egyptians also studied the stars carefully. The night sky helped guide farming and religious festivals. They identified constellations and tracked seasonal changes. This knowledge helped predict important events. In many ways, Egyptian technology was far ahead of its time. Their knowledge shaped thousands of years of history. But even with all their inventions, Egypt still hides countless mysteries. Some discoveries continue to confuse scientists today. Even after centuries of research, ancient Egypt still hides many mysteries. Archaeologists continue to discover new clues every year. These secret spaces may hold artifacts or burial rooms, but many of them remain unexplored. Some tombs were discovered completely untouched. Inside them were objects left exactly as they were thousands of years ago. One of the most famous discoveries was the tomb of a young pharaoh. Its treasures amazed the entire world, but many pharaoh tombs are still missing today. Their locations remain one of Egypt's greatest mysteries. Some historians believe entire cities may still be buried under desert sands. Excavations continue to reveal new structures. In recent years, archaeologists discovered large underground tunnels. These passages connect different ancient sites. Some artifacts also raise new questions about Egyptian knowledge. Certain tools appear surprisingly precise. Massive statues carved from single stones still puzzle engineers today. Their construction required incredible skill. Even the pyramids themselves remain mysterious. Many questions about their construction remain unanswered. Despite thousands of years passing, these monuments still stand strong. Their builders created something truly extraordinary. Ancient Egypt was filled with strange beliefs and fascinating ideas. Many of them still surprise historians today. From unusual rituals to mysterious technology, this civilization left behind an incredible legacy. Every discovery helps us understand their world a little better, but many secrets are still waiting to be uncovered. Ancient Egypt reminds us how creative and complex early civilizations were. Their achievements continue to inspire curiosity. And even today, new discoveries continue to appear beneath the sand. The story of Egypt is far from finished. The more we learn about ancient Egypt, the more questions appear. That mystery is part of what makes it so fascinating. Thousands of years ago, Egyptians built a civilization unlike any other. Their ideas continue to echo through history, and perhaps many more strange facts about Egypt remain undiscovered. The desert may still hold incredible secrets. If you enjoy discovering strange facts from history, there are many more stories waiting to be explored. History is full of mysteries that still surprise us today, and ancient Egypt is one of the most fascinating of all.